When you think about your favorite books, movies, or TV shows, what's the first thing that comes to mind? The jaw-dropping plot twists? The immersive, vivid settings? While those elements are definitely important, chances are it's the unforgettable characters that really stick with you long after the story's over. From the brave, determined heroes you can't help but root for, to the complex, chilling villains that send shivers down your spine, to the quirky, lovable sidekicks that steal every scene they're in, characters are truly the heart and soul of any great story. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into the three main types of characters you'll find in pretty much any work of fiction and explore some practical strategies you can use to craft each one in a way that's compelling, memorable, and keeps your readers hooked from start to finish. By the time we're done here, you'll have a clear understanding of the distinct roles and purposes of protagonists, antagonists, and supporting characters, and a toolbox full of techniques for weaving them into your own stories to create a rich, immersive, unforgettable experience for your audience. Picture the last story that kept you up way past your bedtime, that you just couldn't put down no matter how hard you tried. I'd be willing to bet that a big reason you were so invested was because of the main character, the protagonist. This is the beating heart of your story, the hero or heroine that readers are going to follow on every step of their journey, from page 1 all the way to the end. They're the ones we're rooting for, the ones whose hopes and fears and dreams and struggles we can't help but get emotionally invested in. A great example of a protagonist that just grabs you and doesn't let go is Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games. From the very first scene, we're drawn into her world, her goals, her fierce love for her family. And as the plot unfolds and the stakes keep rising higher and higher, it's Katniss's choices and actions that propel everything forward and keep us on the edge of our seats. But even more than that, through her bravery, her defiance, her unwavering spirit in the face of a brutal, tyrannical government, Katniss comes to embody the story's central themes of rebellion, self-sacrifice, and the unbreakable power of the human will. That's what makes her such an iconic protagonist. She's not just a character, she is the story. So how can you create a protagonist for your own story that's just as compelling, just as unforgettable? Here are a few key things to keep in mind. First, give your protagonist clear, urgent, high-stakes goals right from the start. Ask yourself, what do they want more than anything? What are they willing to fight for, to sacrifice for, to risk everything for? And what will happen if they fail? The more desperate your protagonist's need is, the more driven and motivated they'll be to go after it. And the more invested your readers will be in following them on that journey. Second, make your protagonist someone your audience can relate to and sympathize with, even if they're in a wildly different world or situation. Give them flaws, fears, and challenges that feel authentic and human. Let us see them stumble and struggle and doubt themselves sometimes, not just be an unstoppable superhero all the time. The more your readers can see themselves and their own experiences reflected in your protagonist, the more they'll care about what happens to them. And third, show your protagonist growing, changing, and rising to the occasion as the story goes on. Let them be shaped by the obstacles they face and the relationships they form. Give them tough choices to make and hard lessons to learn. That's what makes for a truly riveting character arc, watching someone evolve into the hero they were always meant to be, right before your eyes. Nail those three things: clear goals, relatability, and a compelling arc, and you'll have a protagonist that readers will gladly follow to the ends of the earth and back. But, of course, every great hero needs an equally great villain to go up against, right? That's where the antagonist comes in. The character who's opposed to your protagonist, who's standing in their way and throwing up roadblocks at every turn. A stellar example is the legendary Professor Moriarty, the brilliant criminal mastermind who's always trying to outsmart and destroy Sherlock Holmes. With his devious schemes and bone-chilling intellect, Moriarty is the perfect foil for Holmes, constantly pushing him to his limits and creating that delicious tension and suspense that keeps us coming back for more. Want to craft an antagonist worthy of going toe-to-toe with your hero? Start by giving them clear, strong motivations of their own. They can't just be evil for the sake of being evil. There has to be a reason behind why they're so dead set on taking down your protagonist. Maybe they have a personal vendetta. Maybe they're fighting for a cause they believe in. Maybe they think they're the ones in the right and your protagonist is actually the villain. The juicier and more believable your antagonist's motives are, the more they'll feel like a force to be reckoned with. It's also key to make your antagonist genuinely powerful, skilled, and competent. There's nothing less satisfying than a villain who's all bark and no bite. Your antagonist's strengths and abilities should be a real match for your protagonist's, if not even greater. Think of it like a game of chess. You want your readers to be constantly guessing who's going to outmaneuver who's going to come out on top. The harder your protagonist has to work for their victory, the more rewarding it'll be in the end. Finally, don't be afraid to add some complexity and nuance to your antagonist. As fun as it can be to have a villain who's just gleefully, mustache-twirlingly evil, giving them a few sympathetic or redeeming qualities can make them so much more fascinating. Maybe there's a tragic backstory that explains how they became so twisted. Maybe they genuinely think they're doing the right thing, in their own warped way. Maybe there's even a part of them that admires the protagonist, despite being their enemy. Adding those shades of gray will elevate your antagonist from a cardboard cutout to a living, breathing, multi-layered character that readers can't look away from. So, we've covered protagonists and antagonists, the two titans battling it out at the heart of your story. But there's one more type of character that's just as important to making your fictional world feel rich and real, even if they're not always in the spotlight, and that's the supporting characters. These are the sidekicks, the allies, the mentors, the love interests, and all the other colorful personalities orbiting around your protagonist. They may not be on every page, but they still play a crucial role in shaping the story. Just think of the Harry Potter series and how empty it would feel without Ron's goofy loyalty, Hermione's whip-smart determination, Neville's quiet courage, Luna's quirky wisdom, and all the rest. Each of those supporting characters isn't just there for window dressing. They bring unique strengths and skills to Harry's journey. They challenge him to see things in new ways, and they have meaningful arcs and growth of their own that make the story's world that much more fleshed out. So don't neglect your supporting characters. Here's how to make them just as memorable as your leads. Give each one a distinctive personality and voice, something that sets them apart. Go beyond stock characters or stereotypes by giving them specific quirks, habits, perspectives, and ways of talking that are all their own. The more unique each character feels, the more your fictional world will come alive. Use your supporting characters to reveal new facets of your protagonist and push them in unexpected directions. Maybe a sidekick calls the hero out on their flaws and blind spots. Maybe a mentor figure shares some hard truths that shake the protagonist's worldview. Maybe a love interest brings out a softer, more vulnerable side we haven't seen before. Let those character dynamics peel back the layers of your protagonist like an onion. Finally, make sure your supporting characters aren't just satellites revolving around the protagonist. Give them goals, conflicts, and stakes of their own that tie into the overall story. You can even weave in subplots for important supporting characters that complement and raise the tension of the main plot. That way, they'll never feel extraneous. They're a vital part of the rich tapestry you're creating. At the end of the day, that's what great character building is really about. making your story feel like a living, breathing world populated by complex people we can't help but care about. If you can create a cast where every single character, from your protagonist to your antagonist to the funny best friend, jumps off the page and captures our hearts and imaginations, then you've got the secret sauce. Everything else? The plot, the world, building, the themes. It'll all fall into place if you nail the characters first. So, let's recap what we've learned today. Your protagonist is the emotional core of your story, the one we're rooting for on every step of their journey. Make sure they have high-stakes goals, relatable struggles, and go on a gripping inner transformation to become the hero they're meant to be. Your antagonist is there to be a worthy opponent. Give them believable personal motives for standing in the protagonist's way. Make them a real force to be reckoned with in terms of power and ability. And don't shy away from adding nuance to make them compelling. And for your supporting characters, focus on giving them distinctive personalities, using them to reveal and challenge new sides of your protagonist, and weaving their individual journeys into the fabric of the larger story. If you can juggle those three character types with skill and heart, you'll have a cast that leaves a permanent mark on anyone lucky enough to spend time with them. So here's my challenge to you. Take a look at the characters in the story you're working on right now and put them to the test. Is your protagonist's goal as high stakes and urgent as it could be? Does your antagonist have motives and layers that make them feel like a full person, not just a one-note bad guy? Are your supporting characters memorable individuals with important roles to play? Be honest with yourself, and don't be afraid to dig in and do some extra development to help them reach their full potential. Your readers will thank you for it, I promise. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today to geek out about character building. It's one of my favorite topics, and I could honestly go on about it for hours, but I should probably wrap this up before it turns into a Lord of the Rings length epic. I'd also love to hear from you guys in the comments. Tell me about some of your favorite fictional characters of all time and what makes them so iconic in your mind.